Welcome back to Old School Sports and our OOTP 23 playthrough of the Kansas City Royals. We are at the beginning of the 2037 to 2038 offseason. Just finished up another successful regular season with the Royals, 102-60, won the AL Central once again, but failed in our quest to win a fourth consecutive World Series. So we are now at a crossroads with what to do with this playthrough, and I do appreciate all of the thoughts that commenters have shared online over the last week or so with suggestions about what to do next. Really appreciate all the ideas, and definitely will take them under consideration for either what we're about to do right now, and then certainly in other playthroughs that we do going forward in OOTP 23 and hopefully in future versions of the game. And we've got a few choices ahead of us. One is to stick with the Royals. We've got a team that's been incredibly successful over the last decade and really most of the 16 years that we've been running it. Got a good situation with good fan loyalty, high fan interest. We're making lots of money. We've got a big budget. We've got a team that's been to the playoffs very consistently. We've been investing a lot in scouting and development over the last decade. It would be easy to stay here and just keep playing with the Royals. See if we can potentially turn someone like Alex Vasquez into a Hall of Famer over the next several years of his career. See if he can potentially join Bobby Witt Jr. in the Hall down the line. See what happens in the final years of Caleb Lagerwell's career. And we've also got a big decision as to whether or not to pick up that $21 million option for Caleb Lagerwell for this upcoming season. His age and the way his ratings look suggest probably don't pick up that option. But he was 13-6 with a 3.22 ERA over 190 plus innings last year. Can we really afford to strip that out of our rotation? So definitely a lot of interesting things to think about if we continue on with the Royals. So that is one option. But given that we've had such a successful run over the years with the Oilers, not the Oilers, the Oilers. What am I thinking of? The old Houston Oilers? The Royals. We've had a great run with the Royals, and we've got a legendary reputation at this point. So that means that about half of the teams in Major League Baseball are willing to let us join them. And we've got some interesting options among these teams. And given that we've got so many interesting options here, the first decision that I have made is that we're going to be continuing to play in this baseball universe that we played in over the last 16 years with our next playthrough. The question is whether there's going to be a next playthrough or do we just continue going on with the Royals. But looking at all the options in front of us, there's some interesting ones. The Diamondbacks, no. 99-win team last year, even though it's a small market, they've got good fan interest. The Red Sox and Cubs are both huge market teams. The Reds and the Rockies, below average market size, but they still have pretty decent fan interest. Reds were a 92-win team. The Rockies not as successful. It's 67 and 95. But that fan interest is still better than a lot of teams out there. So I don't think they're the right way to go. The Astros and the Angels, huge markets, great fan interest. Minnesota Twins, average market size, decent fan interest. But then we get to my New York Yankees. And yes, the market size is astronomical. The fan interest is off the charts. But the Yankees had a losing record this past season. 80 and 82. They've had a losing record 2 of the last 3 seasons. And they have one of the worst minor league systems in all of baseball, ranked 27th out of 30th. Their only top 100 prospect is an 18-year-old catcher that they just drafted this past season. And he didn't even play ball in the minors this year. So the Yankees would allow me to put what I learned on a small and then middle market team with the Royals into practice with a huge budget and a huge player payroll and an astronomical market size, good fan loyalty, off-the-charts fan interest. I think I could quickly start improving that farm system, investing more heavily in scouting and development. And I would have a fun time playing with the Yankees, trying to dominate this universe. So the Yankees are in the mix. But then there's also the Oakland A's, small market team with mediocre fan interest. Pretty bad budget, ranked 27th, although they were 18th in player payroll. Close to 500 last year, though, so they're not a disaster on the field. Only one game worse than the Yankees, to be honest. And they've got a middle-of-the-road farm system, so they were a game behind the Yankees in the standing, but they have a much better farm system than the Yankees. When you take a look at the A's and what they did on the field last year, they were 4th in the American League in runs scored. Now, their pitching was awful, 15th in runs allowed, but they've got a decent offense. Ownership situation is not great. Don't love the fact that John Fisher is still there and he's still a penny pincher. But other than his fiscal personality, he's actually someone who's pretty decent to work for. So the A's could be a nice challenge. Although Around the World Sports just a couple months ago did a A's playthrough that we enjoyed watching. So granted, we're 16 years in the future from that right now, so there wouldn't be too much crossover, but that to me is one reason to not do it, just because it's been done so recently by someone that I spend a lot of time watching and learning from. But staying with the Royals is in the mix. Going to the Yankees and trying to dominate the world is a mix. Going to the A's is in the mix. Phillies, huge market, great fan interest, no thanks. But then the Pittsburgh Pirates, even worse situation potentially than the A's, small market and the worst fan interest of any teams that are out there. Minimal fan loyalty, which is just brutal. I mean, you look at this attendance chart. They're only charging $16.50 for tickets last year, and they still can't get anyone to come to the games. You know, sell out a couple games at the start of the season, and then it's a disaster. Teams had a winning percentage below 400 for 4 of the last 5 years, 6 straight losing seasons, and they keep getting worse and worse. Went from 95 losses to 103 losses to 106 losses to 107 losses in the season that was just completed. Now, they do have the number 1 farm system in baseball, so that potentially makes it a little easier. Potentially makes it a lot easier, but part of that is because they've been probably picking right at the top of the draft for most of the last several seasons. But when you look at what the Pirates actually did on the field last year, it's about as ugly as it can get. Last in the National League with 15th in runs scored, 13th in runs allowed. They were pretty much last or second to last in just about every offensive category. You know, in the bottom third of the league in pretty much every pitching category. And they got worse as the season went on. Winning percentage below 300 in 3 consecutive months to end the season. So the Pirates look like an absolute dumpster fire. So that could be an interesting one to do. Giants, pretty big market, good fan interest. The Rays, very similar profile to the A's, so we've got to think about them. Small market, mediocre fan interest. But the Rays were 500 last season, so they've got certainly more talent, I would assume, than the Pirates. Above average fan loyalty, so that helps. Got some decent money to spend this coming season. 5th best farm system in the majors, with the top prospect in all of baseball and Jorge Ruiz, 20-year-old first-round draft pick from 2035, who looks like a potential monster with the bat. Taking a look at Tampa's statistics from last year. Still on the Pirates. Have to click properly. We take a look at what Tampa Bay did, and mediocre offense, 9th in the American League in runs scored, but a really nice pitching staff, 3rd in runs allowed. So there's definitely some talent here, but still certainly a small market team that has to compete with some pretty high-powered rivals. And then the Texas Rangers, good-sized market, fan interest isn't great. At least take a look there. Not a great record, 73 and 89. The fact that they're such a big market helps them, and they're going to have a ton of money to spend this offseason. They have had 10 straight losing seasons, including a brutal year last year. 4th best minor league system in all of baseball. So clearly you see the teams that have been struggling have been getting better draft picks and generally have higher rated farm systems, which isn't a surprise. And then the Washington Nationals, average market size, pretty good fan interest. Around the World Sports actually also recently played them, so we're going to disqualify them. And the first team we'll disqualify is the A's for the same reason. Don't want to do something that Around the World Sports has done over the last couple of months. So that leaves us with 4 options. Staying with the Kansas City Royals, trying to maintain the dynasty we have with the Royals, quite honestly. Moving on to the New York Yankees, which would be the most fun one for me with being a Yankees fan. Love having that huge budget, just the opportunity to do everything you want. And the Yankees also going to pay more, $1.8 million a year, and give a $3 million contract. In contrast, could go to the Pirates, only going to give $1.3 million and only a 2-year contract. Probably not enough time to turn that team around. Similar situation with Tampa Bay, a little more money, $1.5 million, but only 2 years to turn things around. I think that Pittsburgh is more challenging than Tampa Bay. So we're going to rule out Tampa Bay. So now it's just a question of, do we stick with the Royals, keep trying to build the dynasty there? Do we move to the Yankees and enjoy those great resources of the most storied franchise in baseball history? And still, after the Royals failed to win 4 in a row this year, the only franchise that has ever won 4 or more consecutive World Series championships, do we go to the Yankees to try to build a dynasty there? Or do we go to the Pittsburgh Pirates, the pathetic Pirates who were 30th in baseball in runs scored and 28th in all of baseball in team ERA? Small market, despicable fan interest. We're not going to go back to the Royals. So it's the New York Yankees or the Pittsburgh Pirates. Talked about, I don't love the fact that the Pirates farm system is so highly regarded, but all of the pretty weak teams had pretty good farm systems. And I will say then, when I look in at the farm system, clearly Angel Aguiar, who was their number one draft pick in 2037, looks like a really nice hitting prospect. There's no doubt about it. He's a corner outfielder, but that's fine. This team needs help everywhere. Luis Longoria looks like a very strong pitching prospect, was their number one pick in 2035. He looks like a real potential difference maker to me. He was the second pick in the draft. I don't know who was picked above him. He's still only been in rookie ball, where he was 5-4 last year with a 4.11 ERA, only 48 strikeouts and 61 and a third innings pitched. But you look at that profile, and he could definitely be a front of the rotation starter down the line. The rest of their top prospects aren't as great as far as I'm concerned. Isaiah Hill is another guy who was a number one draft pick. Looks like he could be a very good hitter. He's listed as a center fielder, probably best in left field, but you could certainly play him in center. You could play him in right if you have to. Don't love the arm. Hit 279 in single A ball this year, but he did have 18 home runs. So he's a very good prospect, no doubt about it. Andres Mendez, another guy who was their number one pick. So you can see their top four prospects, Aguiar, Longoria, Hill, and Mendez, are the players that they've picked in the first round over the last four seasons. He's certainly the least impressive of the four. He's a corner outfielder. Looks like he could be a good contact hitter, and certainly have above average power. Not a ton of speed. He's a mediocre left fielder or mediocre right fielder. Did hit 288 in high A ball and 287 in double A ball this year. So he's 23 years old. He's a lot closer to the majors, I think, than the other players. And then their other top prospect is Andy Ochoa, who was up in the majors this year, 4.15 ERA over 21 and 2/3 innings. The issue with him is that he's a two-pitch pitcher. He's got the stamina to start, but he's already fragile. He's only 22 years old. I think he can be a good reliever, but he's never going to be anything but a good reliever. So it's really those top four prospects that are the interesting ones. You got a decent major league corner outfielder. You got with Aguiar and Isaiah Hill potentially very good major league outfielders. And then you got a potential great starter in Luis Longoria. So there's definitely talent in the farm system, but it's not talent that's going to be revolutionary in terms of turning the fortune of this team around over the next couple of years while I've got a contract if I do go that way. So do we go with the Yankees or do we go with the Pirates? Well, there's one other piece of information that I haven't shared yet, and it's about the Pittsburgh Pirates. And yes, Bob Nutting, 16 years into this playthrough, is still their owner. Still the penny pincher, and not all that great in any of the other categories to work with. You got the lowest budget in baseball, the lowest payroll in baseball, a small market, the worst fan loyalty, and the lowest fan interest of any of the teams that are available. 55-107 record last year was by far the worst in baseball. 11 games behind the Guardians, 12 games behind the Rockies. And you look at that major league team and what they did last year, and it's just a disaster. As I talked about, the worst offense in all of baseball and the third worst pitching staff in all of baseball. They're just a total disaster. They do have some talent in the minor leagues, and they theoretically have the number one pick in the upcoming draft, but you do need to keep in mind that we now do the lottery for those draft picks, so they only have about a 17% chance of getting the number one pick. So even though I'm potentially taking over this team thinking I'm going to get the number one pick in next year's draft, which would be a nice change from picking, 30th, 32nd, 33rd, 34th, depending on how many first-round picks there are in the draft in any given year with the Royals. I'm setting myself up for major disappointment if that pick turns into the 4th or 5th or 6th pick in the draft, which is certainly possible. These Pirates are just such a mess. And the fact that they've still got Bob Nutting as the owner 16 years into this playthrough, and you're going to have to deal with his penny-pinching personality as you try to turn this thing around, makes it just such a disaster and such a contrast to what we've built over these past 16 seasons with the Kansas City Royals, that the Yankees are off the list. And we are going to attempt to leave the Kansas City Royals. And we are going to apply as the general manager of the Pirates, take the risk of just a 2-year contract and a crazy cheap owner. And we are now the general manager of the miserable and rebuilding Pittsburgh Pirates. And all we need to do next year is play close to 500 ball. So we just need to figure out a way how to add another 26 wins to this miserable roster that's had a winning percentage well below 400 each of the last 3 seasons. And although we do have a decent farm system, certainly no prospects that look like they're going to help us anytime soon. So goodbye to Kansas City. We are trying to do Theo Epstein one better. He obviously was intimately involved in breaking those long-time curses in both Boston and Chicago. But he also had huge resources in both of those stops. We've built a dynasty in Kansas City. The big question is, can we return the Pittsburgh Pirates to the success that they once had? It's been a long time now. Got to go back to 1979. Willie Stargell, Dave Parker. We are family in those Pirates for the last time they won a championship. So an even longer streak without a championship, obviously much longer of a streak without a championship than the Royals, who had only won 7 seasons before we started the playthrough. And we are moving on, and we are now the general manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates. So we are going to begin this quest to improve this disaster, this dumpster fire of an organization in our next episode. And we're also going to have to figure out how to work effectively with Robert Nutting, who wants us to increase attendance, play close to 500 ball. Oh, and of course, get rid of overpaid veteran Danny Perez, who is by far the best pitcher on the team. Now, he was only 6-15 last year with a 5.16 ERA, so that's not necessarily saying a lot. But he is a legitimate major league pitcher who actually won a Cy Young Award and an All-Star Award a few seasons ago with these Pirates. But he's making $18 million next year, and certainly Mr. Nutting does not want that on the books, which will open up some money for us to spend on free agents, particularly if we get that off the books. But we're probably going to have to get rid of some young talent to get someone to take on that contract potentially. And we've also got to start investing some money into scouting and development so that all of these young quality players in the minor league system can actually get some help in their development. We're going to have to take a look at this coaching staff. You see, we've got some holes down in the minors. They've made an offer to somebody to be a manager at one level. But I'm guessing we're not going to be impressed with our coaches and our scouts and our trainers and our manager. So this is probably going to be a total rebuild. It definitely is a total rebuild. But we've got a crazy owner who wants us to get up to a 500 record next year in the 2038 season, while also dumping the best pitcher on our team. So this is going to be an interesting one. I am looking forward to it. Hope those of you who have enjoyed this Kansas City series will jump on over and watch this new Pirate series with us. Have a hard time believing it's going to be as successful. Have a hard time believing it's going to go 16 seasons, because who knows what's going to happen when we're dealing with Bob Nutting. But we will find out over the next few months together. Until that series starts, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.